I'm coming from a slightly different perspective. I'm a technologist. I have a very limited amount of experience in the medical field. Most of my experience came from being an entrepreneur. I worked with, I was a manufacturer of cosmeceuticals in another lifetime. Right now I'm at Intel, and I'm an innovation manager at Intel. What that means is I do pathfinding on new and interesting use cases around our products. And the questions that I ask are, why can't we use our products in these places where they were never meant to go? And what I do with those is I work with startups to bring those things to life. So when we talk about things like a public-private partnership, I would be a second partner inside of that. So Intel is an ingredient supplier. Just a little note about this picture on the top here. I'm a very visual person here. So my first experience with assistive devices was 3D printing prosthetic hands. So I sit on the leadership council for the eNable group. And I mean, this is one of the most transformative things I've ever seen. It's an incredible project. So that's the first time I really understood the power of assistive devices. And I kind of brought that back into Intel. So if you guys don't know what Intel does, we turn sand into microprocessors. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. We're a manufacturing company. If you have a PC, most of you have a PC here, we make the microprocessors in it. The other things that we do, though, is we make accelerators for technology. So we're building high-end servers like our Xeon Phi, which has 80 cores on a single chip, and putting them into servers. We're also building high-speed memories. Why does any of this stuff matter to a medical audience? You got to ask. Well, all of this is going into the infrastructure that's building the technology behind your applications and behind what startups are doing. And a great example of this is artificial intelligence. We're also a big artificial intelligence company through acquisitions, mind you. We have 3 big acquisitions in artificial intelligence, and we're using that to power some of our new pathfinding efforts around sports and medicine. So kind of in a sense, if my CEO is watching this is what he wants me to tell you, is that Intel is becoming a data company. So I felt like as I was watching the presentations this morning, I was seeing my presentation. So I just said, why don't I just get to the point? If you're a researcher or if you're a startup doing work in this space, these are the things Intel can do for you. We think of ourselves as a force multiplier in the space. So if you need ingredients or if you need ways to accelerate your use of data, then we can do these things for you. We can provide access to customers and devices. For example, Intel has a great organization here in DC and in Maryland called Intel Federal. And we are interested in working with the federal government to promote devices that are on our technology. We also help companies experiment with our technology ingredients. So we were talking about, well, how do you pay for a product that has a very low volume? Well, maybe there's an adjacency that has a much larger volume. Intel's volume, my gate is usually about 100 million devices. That's what my management always is asking me for. So we are looking for ways to find those adjacencies and do some market sensing in there. The other thing, too, is that we gain companies exposure. So we take them to shows, we do studies, we do public relations work with them. We're also doing NRE projects, which is a nod to what Philip was saying earlier. Sometimes if you're working to build a product that we're interested in, a rehabilitative device, maybe we can help you do something different on an Intel product. And so we do NRE projects to bring those to life. And the last thing I want to kind of make clear is in doing this, we're not competing with the startups, we're not competing with the researchers, because we are not a medical company. So that's one of the big things that as a big company, we oftentimes are asked, well, why couldn't you do this? It's because we're Intel. We turn sand into microprocessors, but we would like those microprocessors to be inside your product. So how does this work? This is an approach that I take in my pathfinding. So what we do is we look for startups that are doing things in areas that we're interested in, and we try to make them a really good customer first, right? So we may say, Exobionics, I'm going to pick on you here for a moment. Exo, you want to do, you're building a wonderful exoskeleton. We think we could sell that into gaming. Let's go to EA, for example. So we have a customer, we have a supplier, and we have ourselves as ingredients. So can we break that up into two projects, a proof of concept and a pilot? So we do a proof of concept with Exo. We build something out that works. If it's accepted, great. We put that in front of EA. We do a larger scale pilot. And this is, both of these things are activities that are funded with skin in the game from both sides. We're not going to be putting millions of dollars into a project like this unless there's a really good market opportunity behind it. We're not going to be the sole funder either. But at the end of that pilot, if the customer is happy, then we put Exobionics into our sales organization, and our sales organization has very structured support. They can walk you into other customers doing the same kinds of things. And 9 times out of 10, when startups ask me, well, what can you do for me? What they're asking for is, how do I get to Intel Capital? So I don't speak for Intel Capital, but if we do a project like this, you get 3 proof points that speak for you to Intel Capital. So a joint project is a very powerful way to get industry and capital from a large corporation. And why I'm showing this to you is because this is what I do on the Internet of Things side. The rehabilitative devices model is actually very new to us about in the last year or so. And my colleague Jeremy Parra is the one who's helping me with the productization of that. So there's a key point though. Philip was asking, what kind of business discipline do you have around working with these startups? Well, I'll tell you, it's just like this. This is what it would take to get into a startup accelerator. You need to have some idea of funding, some friends and family in. You need to have an established team with some expertise. You need to have some product traction. On the software side, it's easy. Go put a product in the App Store. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But you'll have proof points. What I'm looking for here for assistive devices is that you have some idea of how you're going to get coverage, and not just that we're going to get a code 2 years from now. There's evidence of nuanced customer development, which speaks to the ideas this morning. Have you talked to your customers? Are you solving a problem, or are you making things worse for them? You'd be surprised how many times we hear idea stage startups come to us, have never spoken to a customer before. The next one is really important too, is some nuanced idea of how regulation works. And it has to be something more than we're just going to 510K it. There's a saying in the tech industry, the Raspberry Pi is not a strategy, right? It's not a product strategy. So if those of you who don't know, a Raspberry Pi is a little compute module. It's $35. It can do the same things a computer can do. But it's provided by a foundation, and you have no control over your supply chain to build a product on this. Similarly, if you have no idea and no control over your regulatory, and granted you probably don't have control over the regulatory, but if you don't have any idea of what you're going to do, then we can't work with you. The reason why we do this is when a small company works with a big company like Intel, we tend to give them what I call the hug of death. When we love working with a company, we kind of love them too much sometimes and give them too many opportunities and outsize the expectations. And then we take them away from their core business, which can kill them. So we're looking for companies that are big enough to work with us. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is we learned this lesson, those selection criteria, working with Dr. Greenwald's company. Our lesson came in scoliosis through working with Unique. I learned about Unique about a year ago at the Autodesk Real conference where I was speaking on 3D printed hands. They took me to see Athor Bender, who's the CEO of Unique, and he told me that we're doing a 3D printed scoliosis brace based off of the work of Scott Summit from Bespoke. What attracted us to this is that it's a fully 3D printed workflow. It's a full 3D model, the full 3D design. This is something we get. We get how to optimize and increase performance in this space. And what they've done is they've turned the scoliosis brace into something that people actually want to wear. What's funny is it's that even though that these things are beautiful, girls don't want to wear these things 12 to 18 hours a day for 2 years. So their answer was, we're going to put a sensor in it, and we're going to surveil the girls. The problem is with the data that comes out of this was every 3 months, the doctor would pull out the data logs, and you had to have a base station. You had to be near a base station to collect the data. I mean, who wants to carry around a base station with you? So we were like, aha, we can put a processor in here. So what we did is we looked at ways of solving the problems that the girls were having. The core problem was not adherence. The core problem was that girls would argue with their mothers over which 18 hours a day that they were wanting to wear this thing. So we solved that problem. We put a data logger that had Bluetooth in it, and then we had it talk to an app. And the app would tell you how long you were wearing it on average. It would also tell you how tight the brace is. So it would give you a clear idea of adherence. You know, are you wearing this thing tight enough? Because otherwise there was just a Sharpie mark on Velcro. So I see some people nodding here, so I know this is a problem. So we replaced Sharpie mark with Velcro with 3 dots that showed, yes, you're wearing this thing tight enough. So the magic that happened next was what I want to talk to you about. We took this data to Studio Battanti. Studio Battanti is a 3D designer. They use the stress data to remove all the plastic that's not therapeutic. And what you get is you start with this brace, and they cut out all the plastic that wasn't therapeutic, and you end up with what amounts to a wearable work of art. It can sustain the same forces, but now the person who's wearing it is wearing a lot less, and the tangible benefit back to them is now they can lean over in this brace, right? And they get our little surveillance machine that also gives them an app, right? So it's an amazing is an amazing useful thing to our user. That was Grace on the who's the user that we've been working with over the past few months. So when we're talking about developing the product with the user, that's one of our big learnings. So I have just a couple minutes here, but I want to walk you through the things that we learned. From the technology side, we are very good at removing friction from user experience. We're very good at making data correlations. And this is how much friction that we saw in all parts of the process. When we talked to Unique, they were like, yeah, this is the case, this is standard. We were like, what the hell is going on here? I mean, this is like 7 steps to design something. This is 5 steps or 3 steps for the doctor. Why do you put up with this? And the answer is, it's always been done this way. So what we're looking at is not taking too many radical steps and cutting out people from the process. Like, we can't cut out the orthotist, for example. We can't cut out the doctor. But what you can do is put the tools in their hands to make them more efficient. So we have a couple of thoughts here in this space. Number one is that we can use that user experience. We turned the brace into an app on the phone. So by osmosis, I suppose, we increased the user's willingness to wear that device. But we also increased their willingness to pay for the device out of cycle without a code. So the insurer doesn't have to pay. They're more willing to pay for the device that's more like an app. And the cool thing is that app is hooked up to an analytics system in the cloud that can then monitor the data and give them more real-time feedback. What's nice about this too is that system, what we're trying to do with that system is make it so that any provider can take that and apply it to other things very easily. So instead of taking thousands or millions of dollars to reinvent the wheel, you could take this particular node and just apply it to a prosthetic, let's say, and then run with it and get almost there, get an indication that a new use case is going to work. The other thing that we're really interested in is deep integration of the sensors. Today, you have to enclose them, stick them on the side. The middle thing is what inspired us to go to Francis Battanti, actually. That's a spider dress. It's an active dress that has, it's a really interesting play with Internet of Things and 3D printing, but it's got active sensors embedded. So if you can have devices that have cheap sensors built in, you can relay that data back into the cloud. You can do things. You can have early intervention, for example. And this also is the basis for us to do future innovations. The one that comes to mind, and feel free to talk to me about this afterwards, is a certified medical AI. The last one I want to show you is the power of how data can be used. Remember when I said that they used data to improve the design of the brace? Well, imagine now you have a population of users sending data into an AI. That AI is talking to your app. Happens today all the time. Almost all the apps that you use have an AI behind them. But now, instead of having a designer design this brace every time, you get design hints directly in your software, and you can remove a large number of steps from the design process. So an orthotist can go and fit a user, submit or have them wear a sensor vest, submit the data to the AI, and it generates the design for you, and the design just comes to you in the mail. And it's even more powerful if you think, what happens if you were to add the user's other data, their Fitbit data, their EMR, whatever else. These are the kinds of things that we're interested in, largely because that involves more microprocessors. I ain't gonna lie. So, therapy, regulatory, it's not our bag. It's not our thing. But technology ingredients, we know that really well. These are the 4 areas that we're really interested in. We're really interested in cooperating, collaborating, and we're here to learn, and here to learn how to solve your problems, and here to talk. So if you have any questions about any of this, I'll be here at the panel, of course, and then you can see me and Jeremy afterwards. Thank you.